What's going on, everyone? The Blue Jays are making headlines again, and this time it's not just about kicking tires or having casual conversations. We're talking about real discussions, actual trade talks, and a player who could completely change the trajectory of this franchise. If you're not paying attention right now, you're missing out on what could be the most important move of this entire offseason. So let me get straight to it. The Toronto Blue Jays are in active conversations about trading for Ketel Marte. Not thinking about it, not maybe interested. Active conversations. Jon Heyman confirmed it. The winter meetings in Orlando are buzzing with this news, and multiple teams are circling. But Toronto is right there in the mix. And when you're talking about a player like Ketel Marte, being in the conversation is massive because this guy is legitimately one of the best all-around players in baseball right now. Let me break down exactly what Marte brings to the table because the numbers are ridiculous. Over the last 3 seasons, he's posted a 16.0 wins above replacement. 16, that puts him in elite company. His slash line during that span is 283, 368, 519. That's not good. That's spectacular. That's the kind of production you dream about getting from an infielder. Consistent contact, solid on-base ability, real power, and the ability to play elite defense at multiple positions. This is exactly the type of player championship teams are built around. But here's where it gets even better. Marte is under contract through 2030. Let me say that again, through 2030. And his salary structure is incredibly team-friendly. We're talking about annual salaries ranging from $12 million to $20 million, with 1 year where he's making just $16 million. For a player of this caliber, that's an absolute steal. When you compare his production to what he's getting paid, there are maybe 5 or 6 contracts in all of baseball that offer better value. For a team like Toronto that's clearly willing to spend money but also wants to be smart about it, this is the perfect scenario. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, Bo Bichette. The Blue Jays have to decide what they're doing with Bo before they can fully commit to something like this, right? Well, maybe not. There's a real argument to be made that Marte is actually the better long-term play regardless of what happens with Bichette. Bo is expected to move off shortstop eventually anyway. Everyone knows that. His defense has been inconsistent, and as he gets older, the move to second base or third base is probably inevitable. Marte gives you stability at second base right now and for the next 5 years. He's not a question mark. He's a known commodity who delivers every single season. And let's talk about what Toronto values in players. They want high-level production. They want guys who can hit, get on base, drive in runs, and play solid defense. Marte checks every single box. He's not a liability anywhere. He doesn't have glaring weaknesses. He's the kind of player you plug into your lineup and forget about because you know exactly what you're getting every night. That consistency is worth its weight in gold, especially when you're trying to build a team that can compete for a World Series. But here's the catch. Arizona wants young pitching. They've made that abundantly clear. They're not looking for prospects who might pan out in 3 years. They want arms who can help them now or very soon. And that puts Toronto in a tough spot because their farm system isn't exactly overflowing with elite pitching talent. Ricky Tiedemann is obviously off the table. He's untouchable. But names like Johnny King, Gage Stanifer, Jake Bloss, those guys could absolutely be part of the package. The question is whether Ross Atkins and the front office are willing to part with any of them to land Marte. And here's the thing. This is the winter meetings. Things move fast. Conversations that are exploratory on Monday can turn into serious negotiations by Wednesday. Teams get aggressive. They make offers. They push for deals. And right now, the Blue Jays and the Red Sox are the 2 teams most closely connected to Marte. Boston is always willing to spend. They've got a deep farm system. They're a legitimate threat to swoop in and grab him if Toronto hesitates. So the urgency is real. If the Blue Jays believe Marte is the piece that puts them over the top, they need to act now. They can't afford to play wait and see while other teams make their moves. The reliever market has already been picked clean. The starting pitching market is getting expensive. Position players of Marte's caliber don't become available very often, and when they do, you have to be ready to pull the trigger. Think about what the lineup could look like with Marte in it. You've got Vladimir Guerrero Jr. anchoring the middle. You've got George Springer providing veteran leadership. Add Marte into that mix, and suddenly you've got one of the most dangerous offensive lineups in the American League. And if they somehow land Kyle Tucker on top of that, forget about it. That's a lineup that can compete with anybody. But it's not just about offense. Marte makes you better defensively. He's versatile. He can play second base. He can play center field if you need him to. That flexibility is huge, especially in the postseason when you need to make defensive substitutions or adjust your alignment based on matchups. Having a player who can move around the field without sacrificing production is a luxury most teams don't have. Now, let's be realistic about what it's going to take to get this done. Arizona isn't going to just hand over Marte for a couple of low-level prospects. They're going to want at least one high-upside pitching prospect, probably another mid-tier prospect, and maybe a throw-in piece to balance things out. That's the starting point. From there, it's about negotiation. It's about convincing Arizona that what Toronto is offering is better than what Boston or any other team can put on the table. And here's where it gets interesting. Toronto has already shown they're willing to be aggressive this offseason. They signed Dylan Cease. They're in on Kyle Tucker. They're pursuing Robert Suarez for the bullpen. This isn't a front office that's sitting back and hoping things work out. They're actively trying to build a championship roster. Adding Marte would be the cherry on top. It would signal to the entire league that Toronto is all in for 2026. But they have to close the deal. They have to be willing to part with some of their young pitching to make it happen, and that's the gamble. Do you trade a promising young arm for a proven superstar who's under contract for 5 more years? Most teams would say yes in a heartbeat. The Blue Jays should be no different. So where does this leave us? The winter meetings are still going on. Conversations are happening behind closed doors. Teams are making offers, counter-offers, and adjustments. Anything can happen, but one thing is clear. If Toronto wants Ketel Marte, they need to go get him. They need to be the most aggressive team in the room. They need to put together the best package Arizona is going to see and get this deal done before someone else does. Because if they don't, and Marte ends up in Boston or somewhere else, they're going to regret it. This is the kind of player who changes franchises. This is the kind of move that defines an offseason. The Blue Jays have an opportunity here. The question is whether they're going to seize it.